My conversation with Asa Hutchinson moves on to domestic policy. It's an area where he tries to differentiate himself from the other Republican candidates. Let's get to some of the issues. I know you're probably dying to do this. So one that's put your party in a bit of a difficult position is abortion. Republicans got their way when the Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade. And you made a statement earlier this year, if I'm correct, that Americans want to restrict abortion with the right exceptions. Now, but since then we've seen voters choose to preserve the woman's right to choose when put on a state ballot, including Republican states like Kentucky recently. Would you push for a national abortion standard if president? If so, what would that be?
I expect this issue to be resolved in the states. That's what happened with the Dodd's decision. It returns to the states. Illinois might make a different decision than Iowa. Arkansas certainly had a more protective bill that was passed. So I expect the states to continue to determine what are the reasonable restrictions on abortion as well as the right exceptions for abortion. And there hasn't been a national consensus that would indicate we're going to have any national law in that regard.
How about states that are being more restrictive who say that their own citizens can't cross state lines to get one, and they would pursue them or prosecute them for that?
I disagree with that totally. You know, when it comes to health care, we have the freedom to travel in this country. And so, no, I don't support any laws that restrict that commerce, and I believe it would be unconstitutional.
It's honestly hard to find big differences among the Republican candidates on some of the domestic issues. You all want lower taxes, big spending cuts on social programs, some of which are popular. You oppose restrictions on guns, increased border security. You've mentioned that. We'll get to that more in detail later, though. Where are you different, though, from the other Republicans on domestic policy? Can you name a couple of specific issues?
Well, first of all, there are differences. For example, Donald Trump wants to put a ring around the United States with a 10% tariff, protecting us. That would hurt our farmers.
Do you oppose tariffs?
Whenever you look, well, broad tariffs like that, I support tariffs against China that are targeted to a particular industry. For example, I want to return ammunition manufacturing back to the United States of America. We get too much of our powder from China. I'll invoke the National Defense Production Act in order to bring that manufacturing back here to the United States. That's something that I lead in that's very important. Whenever you look at some of the candidates want to basically invade Mexico, and we don't do that to a friendly nation. You've got other candidates that want to put to break off all economic ties with China. I want to keep them from buying our farmland. I want to make sure that we return sensitive industries, pharmaceuticals and munitions back to the United States. But if they want to manufacture shoes, we shouldn't be prohibiting from doing that. We'd isolate the United States and punish our consumers and increase inflation. So there are some differences out there between the candidates. Most importantly, who has the experience and who has actually done it. Whether it's border security or the fentanyl crisis that we have, I headed up the DEA. I understand the issue. Balancing the budget. I did that 8 years as governor and created a surplus. So the proven record is, I hope, what the candidates look at.
Well, a couple issues you just brought up. I want to get to both of them, but first let's start with immigration, because there seems to be consensus among Americans that more needs to be done there, specifically with border security. There are also the root causes to address why migrants come to the United States in the first place, and that could require more foreign investments. Most of those who make it here, you can argue, want just a safe life for their families, and of course we've heard that a lot of them are bad people. I would think the majority are good, but we'll see. Is your broader immigration plan more than just border security and deportation?
Well, it is. First of all, we need workers here in the United States of America.
Well, there was once a deal, bipartisanship in the Senate, that called for doing more on immigration, but that failed when Ryan was in charge of the House.
So we have to secure the border first. Secure the border, but I do believe in the legal path of immigration to our country. And for example, I'm the only candidate that talks about this, but I want to have a partnership with the states where we actually authorize the states to have a state-based visa program. If a state governor and their legislature believes they need to have more agricultural workers or more in the nursing field or more in the biotech arena, they can ask the federal government for a state-based visa program, and with the proper restrictions and proper security measures in place, I think that's a good partnership. Exercises the 10th Amendment, gives us workers that we need in particular fields, helps us to grow. And so there's unique approaches that I've presented good that would help us to address both security as well as the legal flow into our country.
Do you raise the legal flow of immigration right now? I think it's like 235,000 are allowed to enter the country illegally getting a visa, and that's been the same for like 20 years, I think. Do you raise that threshold?
Well, there's a lot more that come in terms of temporary work permits. They come in different
I'm talking,
needs.
I think, granting even citizenship, right? I think the 235,000 immigration, that's been the threshold.
I'll accept that. And I think we have to look at that as to the exact right number. I mean, right now we're having millions that come in, literally millions that come in, asking for asylum here in this country. And so, one, we've got to reform that so we don't catch them and release them, and they don't have a court appearance. We've got to make those decisions earlier. Secondly, we've got to make sure that those asylum claims are processed, in Mexico, or they're processed in third countries as they try to move to the United States of America. And then we've got to enhance the legal ability for them to apply to come to the United States, that we can make a decision on that. And Congress, of course, weighs in on the exact number as to who should be coming in.
We'll go another round with Asa Hutchinson. Still had China rumblings. Republicans like to talk tough about the communist country. How tough this candidate says he would be. For the record.